Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Lynn Muvoni. I've been doing content, still will continue doing the motherhood content, parenting with ChatGPT, the Goshi Chronicles. Today, however, I start a new playlist called Nations and Kingdoms, where we look at our country, different aspects of it, explain it from the biblical perspective, kind of like doing a diagnosis, but above all things, you will be seeing and hearing my reforms, suggestions for a better country. I don't know about the rest of you, but right now, I am feeling it. I am feeling the brunt of it. I am seriously looking at the country right now and remembering words that were said by people who are older than me. When we were in campus, when we were younger, and we would be asked, are you going to go vote? And we'd be like, no, vote me? No, I'll just stay in the house all day watching a whole series. Years later, many decades later, 2 presidents later, I feel like maybe I should have done something about it. Maybe I should have tried to let my voice be heard. In my recent past, I've had the privilege of educating young learners in a university. I have also very largely, very significantly dealt with high school people. In terms of demographics, high school people in Kenya are expected to be anywhere between 13 years to 18 years, but because of certain reasons, sometimes we have them going a little bit above 18 years. When we're talking about the ones in university, then we're talking about people who are above 18 years. So, while I dealt with these young people or the young learners, I really had some really great experiences. But I would always want to know where we stand as far as matters state of the nation are concerned. And so sometimes I'd ask, hey, who has read the Constitution? And anybody would be like, okay. Then I ask, what Constitution are we using in our country? I'm asking the younger generation, what Constitution are we using in our country? And sometimes in class, they will ask around, exchange glances, and then somebody will whisper 2010. And then they're like, oh yeah, it's the 2010 Constitution. I'm like, lucky guess, Because we are not very sure of these details when we're younger. When we're younger, those are not really the things that we want to concern ourselves with. But we are not on the right track. And allow me to explain why I say this. When I was younger, when I was in campus, when I was doing my first degree, I remember some of our lecturers would always ask us the same questions. Are you interested in your country's plight? What does the Constitution say about this matter or that matter? And of course, we were not only not knowledgeable about the subject, we also did not care. And then came the question, will you vote when the time for voting comes? And I remember there was a voting year, I think when I was halfway through my first degree, and I did not vote. Of course I did not vote. Why would I have voted? Most of my friends also didn't go to vote. We stayed in the house. We watched programs, we watched series, we watched movies, we watched whatever. But that was like a day off. Hey, siku yenye hatuendi class, hatuendi kuboeka, and we just stayed at home. And of course, when you're younger, you think, none of my business. Let the older generation go decide for us. Now, I'm part of the older generation. Yeah, I'm a millennial, and I'm a proud one at that. But now, what happens is that I am feeling the brunt of it, okay? I feel the brunt of it when I have to get out of the house, when I have to use money for transport, when I have to use money for food, when I have to use money to pay bills, when I have to use money for, upkeep of the house, when I have to use money for the child, when I have to use money for this and that, because you have to use money for everything. And let me tell you, nobody knows their taxes as well as a real taxpayer. Sasa, life imekuwa serious. So now, we're a bit interested in our country. We want to know. But I can't help but wonder, what if the population that had the power at the time would have chosen to rise up and speak? Every time I would ask my former students, will you vote? Well, unanimously at first the answer would be no. And then we'd have a bit of a conversation later and I'd ask them, Do you realize that the choices that you allow people to make right now will have ripple effects on you later? And it will not just be you, it will be you and your children. It will be the generation that you're in right now and the generation that you're yet to bring. And then, you get a glance, you get silence in the room, you get people thinking, oh wait, she could be onto something. In 2010, in terms of demographics, of course, I've looked it up, approximately there was 38 point something population of people estimated to be under the age of 15 years. 2025, we have 36% of that population. When we're talking about people between the ages of 15 and 64 years, currently in 2025, we have 61%. In 2010, there was 58%. And now we have about 3% who are 65 years and older. 2010, we had 2 point something percent who are 65 years and older. I'm not just dropping numbers. I'm talking about real things. That the people with the power are the ones who are currently under 15 years old. So if there's anybody who I want you as a grown-up to direct this video to, let it be to those people. Would this seem like a lot of context for them? Would it seem like a very tough discussion for them to understand? I don't think so. But I think that it is about time that we, the older generation, gave the younger generation the real education that they need to have that concerns their country. Listen up, younger generation. Voting, elections are for you. The say of what is to be in the Constitution is for you. The country and how it will look like 10 years from now and 20 years from now is your business. If you leave it to the older generation, who are you going to leave it to? The 3% we're talking about? Look at the 15 to 64 years. Divide that category into two. Make it 15 to 40 years, or make it 15 to 35 years and then 35 to 64. Is that who you're going to leave it to? I don't think so. So you leave us to make choices for you that you might end up rioting about tomorrow. So the country is as much your business as it is your parents' business. Our presidents, the first Kenyatta led with visible economic growth to an average of up to around 6.4% annually. Not so bad. Then we had the endorsement from the first Kenyatta, President Moi. President Moi, I remember I lived through President Moi. When it was news time, it would be his picture, quite television, for I don't know how long, it was for quite a while. And then, of course, they talk about where he was, and nini. He was the god of the country. Then there was Kibaki. Kibaki came, we saw a doubling of GDP. We saw major infrastructure. In fact, let me tell you, when I was in school, when we were pursuing our master's degree, when we were going through certain projects, for example, the project of the superhighway, like the Thika superhighway, that he championed, he built, and he completed, we were actually being told that that is a project of about 10 years, slightly more. But if memory serves, Kibaki must have done it between either 7 or 8 years. Then we had Uhuru. Uhuru came in. He, with all due respect, completed some of the projects that the Kibaki regime had already started. Then it was Uhuru and Ruto. Now we have the Ruto Hustler Nation. And the promise has soured. The promise looks it's only been 3 years, 2 years to go. The country has had enough. So what is the problem? So in Judges chapter 2 verse 10, allow me to read this. It says, the Israelites forgot God's work. Once a new generation arose, that generation claimed God, but did not live by him. If you notice what we're saying here, it says the generation did not live by God, yet they claimed God. What's happening here? We have certain systemic roots that are broken. Sometimes we as a country, it's good to have a very realistic picture of ourselves. How do we vote in people? Personality over character. If I want your votes tomorrow, my whole personality changes. Suddenly, I become a giver. I will give everybody. Suddenly, niko na roho. I have mercy. I am being moved by people's stories and the stories that were never moving me before. I never cared for them. There are needy people around where I live. I have not taken one look at the widow or the orphan or whatever, but we are voting. In Kenyans, we know ourselves. Especially, we had this, a very, very bad case, mostly during the Kibaki regime, where tribalism took place. So we are voting based off of tribe, based on slogans, based on appearance, rather than moral integrity. You know, tuko pamoja. Hatuko pamoja. Tuko pamoja ukitaka votes. And then afterwards, it goes south. And then we have the elite capture and entitlement, where MPs earn excessive salaries and allowances while youth employment exceeds by 30%. Those are 2023 statistics. And yet you wonder why we are going to have peaceful maandamano ambazo watu hawatafanyiwa looting is not possible. Because some people have now found an outlet to achieve the things that their friends have. Because beste yake akona kitu, juu akona kazi, naye hana juu hana kazi. Yes. A young man has a family, has a wife, has a child. And what are they going to do? It's maandamano day. It's rebellion day. It's a ruleless day. It's a day where crime goes unpunished. Who's going to hold you to account? And then there's fake accountability. We talk about EACC, we talk about the parliament, they lack teeth. Their structures do not allow them to have teeth. I ask myself a question, fellow Kenyans. Is that, do you think that's an oversight or a very calculated move? We have bodies, powerful bodies that should actually bring people to account, but they are not enabled enough to bring people to account. And then finally, we have powerless citizens. Powerless citizens. If not for now, when people are realizing, oh my goodness, the generations that are coming up are not ready for nonsense. If only, the only thing I ask, riot by all means, but empower yourself with the knowledge of what we need to do. So, I got curious. I went to ChatGPT, obviously, because ChatGPT is where I go for everything. And I asked, what is the Kenyan Constitution saying on elections? And there, of course, are a few things. So there are the general principles. There is electoral legislation, where it creates clear electoral unit boundaries and it has proper nomination of candidates. So I wanted to know, what do you mean by proper nomination of candidates? How is it done? So here's the thing. What is a candidate's code of conduct? Allow me to read this. It's part of Article 84 of the Constitution and Section 91 of the Elections Act. It's a written agreement that the candidates must sign before clearance by IEBC to commit to 1. Peaceful, respectful campaigns. 2. No incitement, bribery, or intimidation. 3. Respect for the electoral process and opponents. And 4. Non-violence and lawful behavior. So how do the candidates agree to it? IEBC provides the official code, and then all political parties, independent candidates, and their agents sign it as a condition for clearance and agree to be bound by it during the campaign and voting process. What are the consequences, should we ask, in case they breach the code? They are issued with warnings or fines. A candidate could be disqualified. They also refer them for criminal prosecution, or a candidate is suspended, or a political party is suspended from participating in the election. So, what must the candidate do? 1. It must promote tolerance, unity, and dignity. 2. They must avoid hate speech or discrimination. 3. Allow opponents to campaign freely. 4. Avoid any obstruction or sabotage. 5. Respect IEBC staff police and voters. And 6, educate supporters on peaceful participation. I am not here to ask, do you think they do all this? You are a Kenyan like me. You're a Kenyan citizen like me. You have heard. You have thought about it. You have made your decision. What they cannot do is what I'm mostly interested in reading out. 1, they cannot bribe voters with money, food, or gifts. 2, they cannot use violence, threats, or destruction. 3, they cannot disrupt opponents' rallies or posters. 4, they cannot use public resources for campaigns unless permitted. Number 5, they cannot intimidate election officials or the media. And number 6, they cannot use state security or tribalism for political gain. This is according to Kenyan Constitution, Article 84, Elections Act, Section 91, and IEBC Code of Conduct. Now, I want to ask a question. Now that we've heard what they cannot do, how do we then go ahead and vote for people because they gave us money? How do we then go ahead and vote for people because of tribe, because of threats, because of intimidation? We keep complaining about our leaders, and I am asking ever so politely, could we be humble enough to do a diagnosis and ask ourselves, could we be enabling the bad leadership as citizens of our country? Or alternatively, are we just complainers? Are we just complainers, or are we the ones enabling the bad leadership? So you see, what must change according to the kingdom blueprints? Because you know one thing, whether we want to admit it or not, a leader cannot be elected unless God approves of it. Let that sink in. So the first one is we have to have reforms on character vetting before office. At least have a character dossier. For God's sake, I am asking fellow Kenyans, do you have a character dossier for the kind of candidate you're planning to vote in? For example, can they show us financial transparency for the sake of financial accountability? The reason you want to know about the financial transparency is because this person will be in charge of the economy. As it is right now, Kenyans are struggling with the current economy. So you need to know it is not something that is too much to ask for financial transparency of our candidates who are hoping to be elected in as our leaders. This time round, fellow Kenyans, let us take our country like it is our business, for it is our business. Let us take our country like it is the inheritance of our children. Because even the Bible says a good man leaves an inheritance for their children and their children's children. Would you want to not leave an inheritance of a country? Sometimes I look at the maandamano happening, and every time I hear that a young man was killed, that someone lost their lives, every time I hear that someone has lost their life, like the sad story we had about the 7-year-old boy who lost their life, I can't help but dread the next Maandamano day. Because these are children of parents. These are people who are loved where they come from. And above all things, these are our fellow countrymen. So where are we headed? Anarchy? Where are we headed? Where our own Kenyan men have to be martyrs for us to have change? For us to enjoy the reforms that they are so bravely fighting for? And others are just collateral damage. Another thing, why don't we track record in community service? You need to know whether they serve the community, and if they have served the community, in what capacity. If we are electing you to be our leader of any capacity, you have to demonstrate community service, and it has to be up to our standards. We have to be convinced that you have the plight of the community in your heart. The next one is family and personal integrity. A man without integrity is not a man of their word. And a man is only as good as his word. In Exodus chapter 18 verse 21, the Bible says, select capable men who fear God, who are trustworthy, and who hate dishonest gain. Kenyans, I'm giving you traits. I'm giving you the blueprint for the character dossier that you want to look for. Now, reform number 2, citizen summits after elections. We need accountability. We need accountability. I still remember when the late His Excellency President Mwai Kibaki was printing his manifesto in the newspaper. Do you remember that? It would be in the newspaper around 2 to 3, sometimes 4 pages, sometimes 5 pages. He would write his manifesto in the newspaper. I still remember that. And I remember reading and wondering, is he going to achieve all this? I was still a young girl, yes, but is he going to achieve all this? Now that's what we want. We want a manifesto we can read and a manifesto we can understand. We want a manifesto we all, as Wanjiku, can understand. All of us, as Wanjiku, can understand. Okay? And then we need to normalize. Acha sasa nitumie current language. We need to normalize asking our leaders to report progress on promises. In our workplaces, we always have tactile plans, strategic plans, we have operational plans, and we are always reporting. Give me your 1 week report. Give me your 1 month report. Give me your biannual report. Okay, now let's have the annual report. Why can't we have the same with our leaders? It is our country. It is the biggest deal of all things. It is the biggest deal. Hiyo mshahara ambayo unalipwa, hiyo pesa ambayo unapata, hiyo biashara ambayo umefanya, everything that you have studied, everything that you have, it goes through the government. The government that makes laws. The government that makes laws made by the people you elect. Why is it too much for us to ask for a progress report? Question. Then we also need them to listen to constituents. In Acts chapter 6, we look at the emphasis of public accountability to address injustice among widows. You know, God is so serious about how he expects service to be done. And he even says the true fast is where you will reach out to help the widow and the orphan. The next reform, this one is going to hit deep, but we have to talk about it. We have to audit church endorsements. Church, our religious leaders, I need to ask you people a question. How are you endorsing these leaders for us? Endorse leaders for us who will enable you to answer questions confidently later. Because I wonder how you are answering questions right now. Why are you bringing people to the pulpits? The same pulpits where you stand and you preach to us and you give us the word of God. You're bringing those people to the same pulpits, hosting candidates who are under criminal investigation, hosting candidates who are coming to shamelessly lie to Kenyans, promising things they know, they don't even know how they're going to start working on those promises. Churches, you have to disclose your endorsement criteria or remain neutral. Omba, pray for the nation. Kenya is a seriously religious nation. If you go around Kenya, hakuna mahali hautakosa makanisa. Churches nowadays are so many. There are probably as many as general shops are around the place. Which means we have a strong leaning on God. We are a faith-based nation. I would call it that way. When the President Ruto was being elected by people, most Kenyan citizens were feeling comfortable with him because he is a prayerful man, and so is his wife who anchors him. What are we saying now? You have to teach yourself, like in Ezekiel 34, to rebuke shepherds who exploit their flock. Yes. We rebuke shepherds who are exploiting their flock for their own personal gain. Show us, prove to us, show us your endorsement criteria as a church leaders, and let it be biblically founded or remain neutral. Reform number 4, my suggestion: have a civic curriculum overhaul. As we're nearing the elections, do it for fun. Do it for the heck of it. Go and look for a 7-year-old boy somewhere. Go and look for a 10-year-old boy somewhere. Go and look for a boy who is in primary school, a girl who is in primary school. Ask them, who should we vote for? This is something I did during the last elections. What are they saying? What are the kids saying? Mwenye atoboka. Mwenye atoboka niye tunavutia. It is the system, it is the culture, it is known. Can you do an overhaul in the civic curriculum where civic education is embedded with critical thinking? In high schools, in universities, let them know biblical principles on how leaders should be elected, who the leaders should be. You will be surprised by the kind of leaders our children will vote when it is their time for them to vote. You will be surprised. They will emphasize on justice, on stewardship, on leadership accountability. We need to raise voters who choose, listen, values over tribe. Do you think we can get there? You know, everybody I talk to my age always says, pan, to reform this country, it's going to take a long time. It's okay. Everything good and worthwhile takes some time. So now let's start with our children. Let us teach them the values over the tribes. You know, when you go to a playgroup class, let's start with playgroup, because these children don't yet even know themselves fully. Okay? So they're very, very young. When you go to them, they don't identify each other by their tribe. Mama nilikuwa nimekaa next to ule Mkale, nilikuwa nimekaa next to ule Mkikuyu, nilikuwa nimekaa next to Mjaluo. No. It just say, you know, I was sitting next to that girl who looks like this, the other. The one who laughs a lot. The one who's kind. The one who brings me oranges. That's what they say. It's not about tribe. Tribe ni upuzi yetu. Tribe ni sisi tunakuja kufunza watoto wetu baadaye. It's the truth. Every time I used to go to high schools and like I'm giving them a talk, I remember, of course, one of the things that really overwhelm young children, even youth, ni compare themselves to each other. We can never be the same. You can never be the same. And I remember I used to tell them, you know why the teachers, you know why the administration of this institution ensures that you have the same uniform? It's because when I look at your uniforms, I can't tell who comes from a rich home, who doesn't. I can't tell who is of this tribe, who is of the other tribe. Lino najua kweli. I can't. Can you? Can you? Even when you look at me right now, I'm willing to bet you're going to guess around 5 tribes. Yes, you're going to be right on one. Mostly if you listen to what my name is. But you're going to guess about 5 tribes. Why are we teaching things that don't matter? Why are we teaching things that have made our countrymen kill each other? Why are we allowing the blood that has been poured on the ground from manslaughter, the blood that has been poured on the ground of our ancestors, of a tribe, to keep calling out for justice? Why? Number 5. Number 5 happens. But number 5 happens with a lot of gatekeeping. So number 5 is to make sure that civic forums are public and that everybody knows. Bring the church leaders, bring the youth, bring the professionals, bring everybody. Let everyone be a part of the civic forums. We cannot bring the children, can we? Utaleta mtoto wa class 2 kwa civic forum? Hapana. Utaleta candidate wa class 8, form 4 kwa civic forum? Hapana. So what? They are relying on us to make the reforms proper and right for them. So let us talk about issues: corruption, environment, family structure, national identity, just to name a few. Let us bring these issues into civic forums. Raise children who know a lot about their country. Children know a lot about a lot they should not know about. Tuna deny ama? They know so much. They know so much. We are seeing children coming on the internet when they, get to ID, attaining age, doing unbelievable things. Alijua jana, Alijua jana jioni, si ndio? Alienda ka find about it jana jioni, and then sasa akakuja kwa internet kufanya. No. These children know so much. Let them know. The same way they know that we elect wale ambao wanatoboka, let them know that no, we're electing people of integrity. Goodness, I don't know if I can say this louder enough. For crying out loud, if we do not wake up and emphasize on the younger generation, sijui tutaenda wapi. I don't know how more clearly I can say this, but I have to say it. It is about time that we normalized teaching the younger generation, where 36% of the population is right now. Human beings under the age of 15 years. We need to teach them about their country in a language that they understand, in knowledge that they understand. I strongly advocate that the government will come up with programs and reforms where civic education will be done, broken down language ya watoto, broken down to the high schoolers. They will understand what you're saying. Let them know that we are totally depending on them to make the country a better place. Meanwhile, where are we? And again I ask, is it the leaders who elect who become bad people? Or is it our problem? Are we the complainers? And I have to ask that question because before they even come, they were a part of us. It's like you one day, kesho, tukuelect wewe president. What kind of a president will you be? Will you serve us well? Or will we want to impeach you? This is not about building a Christian state. It is about raising a righteous people. Because righteousness exalts a nation, not religion without fruit. That is Proverbs 14, verse 24. Thank you so much for listening to this. If you like this content, if you want more of this, please let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Stay tuned for more. God bless you.